This episode we'll be discussing rent increases.
I like to be educated, but I'm so frustrated. Hello to my loneliness. I guess that ignorance is bliss.
Hi, I'm Hayley, and I don't know much about property management. Luckily, each month I get to sit down and learn with Elizabeth, owner of Parkstone Property in Mackay, Queensland. We tackle topics relevant to renters, investors, landlords and property managers, providing education, tips and tricks, and hopefully breaking down some stigmas along the way.
I wish I knew.
But first, we have our milkshake.
Oh, yes, the icebreaker. Oh,
Go for it.
is this going to be another deep and meaningful?
You never
do you
know
think?
with ChatGPT. What if they graced us
Oh,
with...
okay. What's a song that instantly takes you back to a specific moment in your life?
Oh, God. I could name 1,000.
Yeah, there's a
This
lot.
is like I soundtrack my life,
Do you?
basically.
What's that TV show that used to like, is that? There's a TV show that's like
Is
that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, first thing that comes to mind,
Yeah.
My Heart Will Go On,
Yeah.
Titanic.
What
I
moment does it take you to?
Well, it's basically taking me back to the moment I went to the movies to watch it.
Fair.
I remember going and everybody was complaining that the movie was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours long,
Right.
and how long that was for a movie.
It's standard now.
Exactly. It's like, oh, Gladiator. I went and saw that the other day and that's 3 hours 10 or something. It's like, okay, now it's getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that song, that moment
Okay.
in life. And it's quintessential, I suppose, for that time in my life.
Yes.
Because that was when we had school discos,
Yeah.
that was the song that everybody, like that was the last dance song. And it was so much love and yeah.
Yes, I think for me, like the most like important, I wouldn't say important, but just like defining periods of your life, there's so much music associated with that. And so for me, that was like 2017, 2018. That's when I met my now wife, Shay. I was 16, 15, 16 at the time. So like the very defining parts. So pretty much all the music from then, essentially. But something I've also noticed specifically, you know the show Heartstopper on Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, based on the books.
Yes, my boys have read the books.
Yeah,
They watched the series.
They're
Yep.
fantastic. I love that show. But there's a soundtrack that they used in season 1 and 2 of that show, amazingly picked, to the point where I didn't listen to any of those songs back then.
Yeah, right.
But because the show feels so close to my story and my experiences, now when I listen to those songs from the show, it makes me feel like being 16.
Yes,
But
okay.
I didn't listen to any of that music at the time. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But just because it was so
right.
well made.
Yes.
So that's something I always find
Yeah,
interesting.
right. There you go.
Yeah.
I must say the TV shows nowadays have got really good soundtracks.
Yeah. And good, because it's such a big part of telling the story, I
It
think.
is. It's all part of the emotion.
Yeah.
It's like even with TV commercials, there's so much emotion behind that music that runs in the background. It will pretty much dictate what emotion you are going to feel when watching that.
Yep. Well, people's whole careers is just picking soundtracks and scoring.
Yeah.
It's really big. But yeah, so that's
There you go.
But no, I could go into specific songs for hours, so I'm not going to do that.
Well, thank you for sharing that small snippet.
Yeah, just look up like best of 2018 or the Heartstopper
Wow.
soundtrack. And
I don't
like,
even
those are
remember
all
2017 and 2018.
It was a while ago now.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago. Don't remind me.
Yeah, no, let's not
But
go.
I'm 23. I don't want to know. I know that's still young, but I don't want to know. Rightio. Do we have a word on the street?
Yeah, so I suppose it's about current market. What does that actually mean in terms of renting or selling?
Yep.
Current market is what the market is saying is that it's worth. So it can fluctuate depending what's going on. Even depends on coal prices. It depends on what infrastructure is going on around your area. If you've got a train line going in, it's probably going to reduce your rental value because you've got a massive noisy thing there that's all the time. So things like that. Or if you live near a power lines, it may decrease your value because of, radiation and everything that comes off power lines. So just, bridging over those kind of things. Current market means what in the market right now it would be worth.
Right.
Not
so that's
6 months ago.
Current market rent.
Current market rent, current market sales. So in Mackay, got a massive surge in prices at the moment. So current market is great
Yep.
to sell. But if you sell, you've then got to get back into the market again if you want to buy
Yeah.
in Mackay. So not necessarily a good thing either. Yeah,
No.
you might sell your property that you bought for 410,000. You might sell it for 600,000. Awesome, you've made money on your house, but you've then got to buy back into the market again in the same conditions, high interest rates potentially as well. Even though there's talk that they're going to come down. So there's so many things that go into that. But in terms of current market and what that means to an owner, investor, tenant, that's what it means right now.
Right.
We look at what else has, in terms of renting, we look at what else is renting in that area similar to what your property is. And that's how we come up with rent increases or what the current rent is. Realestate.com does a lot of data as well because they can see what properties have gone online for and then how long it's taken for them to rent. So they take a lot of that data and average that out over the year to what the average rent is in your suburb.
And that's public data.
That's public
too.
data.
Anyone can go look at that.
Yeah,
if
so
you
you
sort of know what you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. So if you go onto realestate.com and you type in the buy section, the suburb that you want, it'll bring up what's for sale. But then in the top right-hand corner, I think it says what is your value worth or what's the averages in that suburb. Click on that and it will bring you up the average for the year. Especially now, we can look back at 2024. So then you can click around with units, houses, bedrooms, all of that, and it will give you that data. So I use that a lot when I'm marketing properties, especially when I've rented something. I look at, okay, I've just rented a property in Bukasia, rented it for $740 a week. Fantastic. What average rent is in that suburb? And then I can use that data. Okay, average rent for a 4, 2 and 2 might be $620,000. Sweet. I've just rented this property $120 above average rent in that suburb. Come and rent your properties with me because I'm going to get you more money per week.
Absolutely.
So it's a marketing ploy there, but
I wouldn't say ploy. It's telling people.
It's a tactic and it's a strategic way
Yes.
of giving information, especially if you're not sure who to go with. Because if I look on realestate.com on any given day, property prices all over the show for rent. You might get, so my properties are a little bit more expensive than some, but you know, I'm working for my owner and that's what all investors are looking for. So if I have a property in Blacks Beach, for example, some agents may have them at $550 a week. They may not be exactly the same as something that I might be renting at $690, $710. Obviously, tenants are going to gravitate towards the one that's cheaper, but is it fully air conditioned? No, it's only air conditioned in the main living and the main bedroom. The other 3 bedrooms are not air conditioned. My bedroom at my property at 710, fully air-conned, 2 living areas. So it also can depict what that property, what it features it has to what it's worth in current market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
there you go. So that's our word of the day. Word on the street.
Yeah,
Word of the
current
day.
market. Yeah.
What am I doing? I'm on a different podcast today. But yeah, leads us into rent increases. So we're talking about increasing rent during, well, just in general, because this is something that confuses me actually a lot because it changed about how often people can increase the rent.
Yes.
And I understand sort of how it works, but I can never quite wrap my head around it. So the idea being that you can't, as an owner, increase the rent more often than 12 months of any active lease.
Correct. So basically an owner can't increase their rent whenever they like.
Yeah.
It's got to be at 12-month increments.
Yeah.
So you've got a tenant that moves in, a brand new tenant moves into a house. Let's say you buy one.
Yep.
You're going to put your first tenant in.
Awesome.
You advertise it at $600. Just keep neat numbers.
Sure.
$600 per week.
Yep.
You then sign a tenant up at $600 a week for 12 months.
Yep.
Okay, so the 1st of December.
Amazing.
You cannot increase your rent until the 2nd of December 2026.
Right. Makes sense.
So it's got to be after that 12 months has expired.
Yep.
That comes into then lease renewals. So we talk to our owners prior to your expiry on the, for example, it would be 1st of December 2026 that when your lease expires.
Yep.
We would be talking in, say, October, September, October, in preparation because that December period's crazy. So we like to make things, get things organised in case the tenant wants to move. We would talk in, September, October. We think this is what the rent is worth per week now with the current market trends. So that may warrant a rent increase. It might be 640 to go to 640 or to 650. Then we've still got time to talk to the tenant and say, look, your lease is coming up for renewal. What are your intentions? Do you want to stay? If you do stay, there's a good chance there may be a rent increase.
Yep.
And then if they're happy with the rent increase amount, remembering you can counter offer as a tenant. If you can't afford that or don't want to pay that, don't think it's worth it, then you can counter offer, but the owner can always say no, and then notice to leave may come, or you end up signing for a renewal at that higher amount, even though you've asked for lower.
Yep.
It's up to you what you decide, what you choose to move forward with. Yep. But then that rent increase, let's say it's going to 650 for simple math, it would not start. We would get you to sign a lease renewal or the new tenancy agreement for another 12 months. Yep. But we would write in there that the rent starts on the 2nd of December 2026.
Makes sense.
When the new lease starts.
Yep.
Because that's when we're able to increase that rent.
Yeah.
We can't do it on the 30th of November.
When you signed it.
When you technically physically signed it, but the start date, it's got to be the start date of that fixed term.
New fixed term.
Yep.
Here's what confuses me, because that all makes sense to me. I track. If you signed a tenant on for a 6-month lease, they went into that property until June, whatever it might be. Can you then increase the rent for the next tenant who comes in June, or do you still have to wait?
You have to wait.
So you could be a tenant who moves in and signs a 12-month lease in June, but then you could get your rent increased at the 6-month mark, because that's 12 months from the last time they increased the rent.
Yeah. So basically then, no, it wouldn't actually be June. So
no.
Let's say, for example, you signed a lease for 6 months and your start date is the 1st of January.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then... for argument's sake, just keep things simple. Yes. It's a 6-month lease and expires 6 months would then technically be the 1st of July because it's 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? And then you move out on the 1st of July.
Yes.
The owner cannot increase the rent because it hasn't been 12 months since you first moved in.
No.
They can move someone in on the same rent.
Right.
They can increase the rent the 2nd of January 2026.
Yeah, for that.
Because it's 12 months from the original tenant moving in, or that new rent starting, but that would then be written into the lease agreement from the July lease through to the next July lease that the new rent starts. So you've got 6 months rent at the existing rent, 6 months at the new rent.
Right.
Makes things extra complicated, but that's when it used to be with old break leases and things, and we will see that now with the break leases or people ending their leases early. That 12 months still has to continue regardless of what tenants are in there.
Yeah.
So it's 12 months on the property.
Because I feel like as a tenant reading that new legislation and them saying, oh, well, owners can only increase rent every 12 months now, you'd be like, oh, sick. So when I move in, I'll always pay that same rent for a year. But that's not what that means at all.
No.
And I think that can be a bit misleading for
it can be very confusing. Yeah. But I mean, that too is when it comes down to explaining it. So when you're advertising the property, it's okay, the rent is this per week, but the rent will be increasing as of the 2nd of January to this amount.
Yeah.
So then everybody sees that. It's there. I always make a mention of it every time I talk to that applicant to make sure that they know every time I talk to them, and then it's in every correspondence I write to them before they sign the lease. Yeah. If they don't read the lease, I can't do anything about that. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
That's right.
Case in point. But it does make it a bit trickier. But the other thing I wanted to talk about with rent increases is that, we can do it every 12 months, but it's not necessarily whether there's been changes to the property.
Right.
So, just going on market trends, let's say your owner hasn't done any maintenance or hasn't needed to do any maintenance on the property. Everything is still working. Everything is still the same. Yeah. But they want to increase the rent.
Okay.
They can.
Yeah.
So it goes on what the current market value is.
Yeah.
I've had some tenants saying, I've read online as well, the owner's done nothing to the property. Why can they increase the rent?
Right, okay, I understand. So people sort of think that
the owner has to make
has
improvements.
To be based on the relative value of the property on its own.
Yes.
In a vacuum, but the economy and
Yes.
inflation and stuff.
Correct.
That's mainly why they increased the rent.
That's right. But also, too, they mainly increase the rent because their own bills have gone up in terms of the property. So,
and their groceries have gone up.
well, not
and
just that. It's their
mortgage
insurances,
rates.
their mortgage rates, their land rates or council rates.
Yep.
Cost of water per kilolitre has gone up. So it's now like $1.90 a kilolitre in Mackay.
Yep.
I remember when it used to be like $1.20.
Yeah.
So it's gone up, way up.
Yeah.
And now it's like $2.97, I think, if you go over a certain kilolitre over a 6-month period.
Yeah.
So, water is precious. So it's making us more aware of what we're using.
Yep.
And the change in legislation of 100% water efficiency, like water efficiency certificates for tenants to be able to pay or be asked to pay 100% water usage, basically meaning you pay for what you use, which it should have been anyway from get-go.
I always thought that how it was.
No, prior to the legislation change, you could charge the tenant excess water only, which basically means up to a certain kilolitre, so it's 150 kilolitres. If you go over that, the tenant has to pay that difference because it's kind of
regular usage.
Regular use.
It's
but I mean,
so funny that I say that because I used to be an admin for real estate and I used to charge people water. So that's obviously must have been what I was charging them, was the excess.
Yes, was the excess. So now with legislation, you have to have that water efficiency certificate to be able to charge your tenant. You've also got timeframes you have to get that water notice to the tenant via your property manager, and if you don't get it within that timeframe, you can't charge them. So it really makes your property manager more aware, more competent, more organised, and to chase you for that water notice if you haven't received it. But more importantly, it's having that water efficiency certificate to make sure that property has got the correct flow rate.
I see.
Because if you don't have the correct flow rate, then the tenants are going to use a lot more water than the next door's house, which has an average consumption. So it's a whole different conversation again there with water.
Yeah,
but
wow.
in
It's
terms
more
of
complex than I thought.
in terms of rent increases, the owner doesn't have to do anything to the house to warrant it to be worth more.
No.
Because it's all, again, comes down to current market rent.
Yes.
And if there is a house down the road, or if you're in a duplex, for example, and the duplex next door has had a change of tenant, able to increase the rent, and the market's dictating that it's $200 more than yours, there's a good chance you're going to have a rent increase. It may not be the 200, but it may be a significant increase to try and bring your rent closer to market rent or current market rent.
My other question about that, I believe I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I could be wrong. In the old legislation, there was no limit on when they could change it, but they were only allowed to change it by a certain percentage amount of that original rent. Is there still a percentage, like you can only raise it by 10% or you can only raise it by...
There is no percentages.
So
There's
now it can
never
be
been
raised.
any percentages.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where did I
Commercial
get that?
rent, you can. Commercial rent can be by CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. My brain is not braining. And you could increase your rent by whatever it was dictated, and they stats come out every year of what that is, and you can look that up online. And for various times throughout the year, commercial rent can be increased if it's written into the lease agreement.
Right.
It will say by CPI, or it's by a bulk amount, like an actual flat figure.
Right.
It will be increased by $300.
Yes.
So it's got to be one or the other. Most owners go for CPI for commercial because then that fluctuates. It might be 2% 1 year and you go ahead another 2 years and it might be 6% depending on what's going on with inflation, everything like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of residential, no.
There's no percentage.
No percentage.
Minimum or maximum.
No minimum, no maximum.
So technically speaking, if it was $600 per week, they could raise it up to like $800
Yes.
in one lease change.
Yes.
Or in one 12 month. Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
There will be a lot of increases. There will be a massive surge of unfair rent increases.
Do you reckon?
Yes, because even in Mackay, there are so many properties that are way under value for current market value.
Yeah.
And so then I've seen on Facebook pages, it's really sad that they're getting $200 and $300 rent increases for a lease renewal. Wow. Because unfortunately, those real estates have not been on trend with those rents to begin with.
So they've had to.
So
kind
they've
of
had to
jump so
bump them
high
up. Yeah, because the owner's going,
Right.
well, look, Joe Blow's house down the road
Yeah.
is getting, $800 a week, and now I'm only getting $600. I want an
Yeah.
extra $200. Like, it's the same property.
Yeah.
So it's really important from a property manager perspective to increase rent when you can, not just because you want to be greedy, but it's more to keep the tenant aware that it is closer to market value. Because if they have to move for some reason, then they will research what other properties are around that are similar to theirs and realise, okay, that's on point.
Yeah.
Their rent increase is actually valid.
Yeah.
I always pose the question to my tenants, and like, I've never had to increase by $200 or $300 ever, because I've always increased in increments every 12 months. And prior to that, if it was every 6 months, because it was way under market value, and it's something I inherited. It wasn't an owner I had from the get go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would increment rent increases. But if it was one I inherited, then there'd be the major increase. But it's unfortunate, but it's also explaining it to a tenant.
Yeah.
That property was way under market value to begin with. And you knew that, and you never said anything.
Why you applied for it, because
Exactly,
it's so cheap.
that's right. And look, always up for a bargain. And if you see something
if you're happy with the whatever shortfalls come with slightly lower rent,
that's right.
then go for it, obviously.
Correct, yeah. But then also sometimes too, I've been thinking about this, of lower rents may also indicate to you as a tenant, is that agency really on point? Is that going to then flow through to their services? Are they going to fully understand legislation? Are they going to be quick and prompt, or are they going to be slow as well? And then does that roll through to an owner? Are they a good owner? Are they attentive? Do they get things done quickly?
Yeah.
I mean, the agency is a representation of the tenant. So if that agency is not doing everything, that's not necessarily the owner's fault, but they've chosen that property manager to do that job. And if they're not doing it effectively, then that's the fault of the owner. So many questions that I have that keep me up at night instead of going to sleep.
Of course. Looking
at what the market's doing and what other agencies are doing in town, or what the market trends are doing.
Yep.
But in terms of rent increases, it's not great getting a rent increase every 12 months, but you can now look at it from a point of view of an owner. They used to be able to do it every 6 weeks, and it might have only been $10 or $20 every 6 months, which is like $10 or $20. I know it's a lot, and for most people it can be a lot, but that's better than every 12 months you're getting a $100 rent increase.
Yeah.
Or a $50 rent increase, because that's $200 extra a month you've got to find.
Yep.
Not to
All of a
mention,
sudden.
and not to mention then you've got a bond top up as well that you have to pay. So it's rent increases are a necessary part. And if you again, can counter offer, but it's really important to understand that it's not about what additions the owner has made to the property.
Yeah.
If it's exactly the same, it's called, the market is changing, and the owner is just taking full advantage of what they're able to do.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And if you left one house to go move into another one that might be slightly more expensive, it's actually going to cost you more.
Yeah.
Because you have to pay for the full 6 weeks, the 2 weeks rent for the first 2 weeks, 4 weeks for the bond. Then you're going to have the moving costs as well. Sometimes it's worthwhile just to stay put and pay the increase. It might be $40 or $50 and stay put. You're not upheavaling your whole family, not having to change your address, all of the extra things that come with moving. Changing your power over, NBN connection, getting that all set up again, which takes time.
It does.
So rent increases are just part and parcel with renting.
Yeah.
And there are many reasons to why owners do them, and it's not necessarily because they've fully airconned the house now, it's worth more. I mean, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But even if they
That's
don't do
not the only reason.
No.
Yeah.
Because rising costs for them to keep the investment property, and also just current market trends. So the owner doesn't physically have to make changes, like they don't have to change the toilet seat or change the toilet bowl to warrant a rent increase.
Yep.
They can do it if they want to.
They can.
It's whether you're prepared to accept it, and if you're not, that's okay. You're welcome to go find another property that suits your needs that might be cheaper.
Yeah. It is. I think it is just such a controversial kind of discussion, I think, because a lot of people, especially Gen Z people, there's a lot of grievance around people who own lots and lots of investment properties and perhaps have already paid off the mortgages on those and just own them and are just profiting off of them. And it's sort of kind of like, you know, like, what are they raising the rent for? And you're like, they've got enough money. They don't need it,
yeah,
and like, they don't need to do that. But it's an interesting point you make about the fact that if you don't raise it to align with the fluctuating market, if you keep it at that low point, eventually someone else might obtain that property and then boost it up anyway.
Exactly.
So even if you stayed there, you know, it might actually end up being worse if they don't slowly keep track of the increase. So
think of it in this way. If you're a tenant and your investors kept your rent really low, they may have to sell it because they can't afford it anymore.
Yeah.
And then you get an investor who buys it, jacks your rent up, and then it becomes profitable.
Yeah.
So
and then that's a huge increase all at once.
That's a massive increase all at once.
And you're left kind of just having to deal with that. So
and I mean, I think tenants need to understand as well, we've all got to start somewhere. Those people that have got investment portfolios, they've taken massive risks themselves financially. Property is not an easy investment.
No.
There's so many factors, contributing factors that where it could go wrong. So many things that could go wrong with investment.
Very labour-intensive investment as well, property.
Can be very, very expensive as well.
Yeah.
If you have bad tenants in a property, you're then out of pocket maybe 10 grand. You may not be able to get back depending on your insurance. But so maybe it's a bit of tall poppy syndrome. It's like the victim mentality of, why do you need to increase the rent? It's like, well, we've got bills as well. And yes, okay, that owner may be at a point where they're earning money off those properties, but good on them. They've probably gone the hard slog for 10 or 15 years, having to top up those mortgages because the property market was bad and the rent wasn't covering the mortgage repayments. So now it's just gone in a different cycle now into, okay, all those hard years have actually paid off. They stuck through that and now they're reaping the rewards because they went through those hard slogs. So it's easy and off the cuff to say or to think, oh, they don't need the money. Why, it's another rent increase and, they've got lots of money, but they've gone through a lot of risk financially themselves
to get there,
to have those investments. And like I've said before in other podcasts, if we didn't have investors, you'd have no house.
Yeah.
So you can't keep knocking them down. Investors have a purpose.
I mean, I suppose it's just trying to find somebody to blame for wider societal issues. And I mean, I could get very controversial with this, and I maybe even cut this out, but it's sort of like maybe take a step back and look at kind of the mechanisms in play that continue to create a very rich 1% and a very poor 1%. And, trying to eliminate the middle class and all this sort of very, very political stuff. But that's, I guess, what you're really angry at deep down. But the landlord, the owner, the investor becomes that person to blame because they're the ones getting the money that you're paying to the rent.
Correct.
So
but more often than not, they're not. Those properties are not necessarily positively geared, which means that the rent is covering the mortgage repayment and then some. Yeah. But I mean, as an investor or an owner, if your property needs a new hot water cylinder, you've got no choice but to spend that $1,500, $2,000 in one go. Yeah. You've got to come up with that money somehow, and the tenant needs hot water. So you have to pay it. So it's not all rainbows as an investor because there is so much more responsibility financially, not only for your own house. You might live without hot water for 3 weeks because you can't afford to pay for a new hot water cylinder. But if your tenant needs one, you've got to do it straight away.
It's kind of like investing in properties, like buying a living, breathing entity that you have to look after. Yep. It's like, when you think about it, it's not just a house on land that you're just raking in the money.
That's
from.
right.
Like
No, definitely not.
You're looking after that thing like it's alive. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So it's a huge, huge misconception that owners are wealthy and they're just sitting on the beach having a pina colada. It's like
or that they're inherently doing things just out of greed and not out of necessity a lot of the time, or out of just reacting to the market that affects them.
That's right. Yeah. And that's their job, because we don't know how long this great market's going to last. So we need to capitalise on that for as long as we can, so that we can set up our owners for when that market does drop, and it will at some point, that we've got a nice little nest egg for them, that it can actually survive that storm.
Yeah, they don't have to go selling a bunch of
Correct.
things.
And then,
Like
the
in
tenants,
Monopoly.
and the tenants get displaced again, and then it happens all again.
Yep. It becomes a bit more of a
So
nightmare. So
it does.
we want
it
stability
does.
in a storm
That's
situation.
right.
That's
So
right.
rent increases are really important, and while we as tenants, we don't like them,
Yeah.
they're unfortunately part and parcel, and we should become familiar with it happening every 12 months.
Yep. I always expect
Guaranteed,
a rent
yeah.
increase every 12 months. I would be shocked if I got the exact same lease back,
Yeah.
to be honest.
I mean, look, there's some owners that won't, instead of, the current market might be that the rent is worth $650 a week, and they might go, look, you're great tenants and I love having you there, you're looking after it really, really well. I'm only going to do a $20 rent increase.
I think conversations about this topic are going to continue to go on, because I can definitely see, like, a lot of politicians and parties are still trying to pass bills and laws that affect things for tenants, and to try and support the poorer communities, which unfortunately are a lot of us. But I would expect this conversation to keep coming and changing.
Hugely, but in terms of rent increases, it's just not involved. Just doesn't stop at investors. Okay, so why can't people afford their rent anymore? Because cost of living.
Yep.
And where does that come back to? Groceries and supermarkets.
Yep.
And the cost of things now. So we need to be having a wider conversation.
Yeah.
And why aren't wages increasing?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
so there's a whole big conversation that everything
really
is
the problem,
all
isn't it?
connected.
That's
yes,
really
exactly.
the problem.
The hourly wage, but then also too with governments when they're talking about, and you've got people coming into power and they're talking about, we want a rent cap. That's not going to help investors stay in the market. That's going to make them get out of it, which is then in turn going to cause a bigger problem. Let's look at the public housing system. And if those people that are in lower socioeconomic brackets can't afford rent in the private sector, they call it, which is real estate, then why isn't there more public housing for those people? Which then becomes a government problem, not a private sector problem.
Yes.
So there is a whole another topic and conversation there.
Oh, yes.
That don't just look at owners and investors as they are the problem because they're increasing rent.
You're all in the same boat in terms of who's politically running your current
area
of living, right?
That's
and
right.
Who's running the country. And
correct.
So,
but I mean, you can even say for owners and investors, there's very little incentive now for them to become an owner or an investor because all of those perks that the government used to have and the tax office used to have, they're slowly whittling those away. So why would you become an investor? You may not now because there's no real benefit apart from if you're looking at your superannuation and building in a super fund, so using your super to buy properties. It's a safe way to do it instead of leaving it with the big superannuation funds that you splash millions of dollars on naming a stadium and it's like, oh, that's my money, that's supporting that. So
quietly.
but like those those owners that are trying to make something for themselves when they retire.
Yeah, it's a strategy.
It is a strategy, but why do tenants not see that maybe baseline? They're disappointed that they can't do the same.
I would think it's a lot of that, to be honest. And it isn't, at the end of the day, like, we're all dealt different hands in life. And the fact is that some people really are born into a family that's very privileged and wealthy, and they perhaps did have some help from their wealthy parents to put down that deposit on that first investment property, and that got their foot in the door, and they built equity from there. And other people don't have that opportunity, and they may have been born into some really unfortunate situations financially, and and weren't able to make those choices and don't have those choices available to them. But at the same time, I think the biggest grievance is the fact that they have a human right to housing, food, clothes, water, all the basic needs and stuff. And if there's a reason why you're not having access to those things fairly enough, it's not necessarily the owner's fault that you don't have access to those things.
Correct.
It's the system that affects all of us, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
And
hugely with the system.
Yeah. So we can't ignore the fact that everyone, that some people are more, privileged than others just from birth.
Yeah.
And that's the fact,
But looking at the bigger picture, instead of throwing hate out to investors, it's looking at the bigger picture, that there is more factors involved with why the housing market is the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But it'll be an ongoing thing, I think.
So.
And I think we'll see we'll see a lot of discourse
We
about
will.
it.
We will.
So something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
tuning into this episode of Parkstone at Home.
Thank you.
I've been Hayley.
I've been Elizabeth.
And if you want to hear more of our chatter, you can stream our podcast and past episodes on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can also follow us on socials at Parkstone Property. And we'll post shorts from these recordings and just other updates from Parkstone Property Agency. But we'll see you in the next episode.
Oh, fabulous.
See ya.
Bye.
This podcast was recorded on Gubby Gubby Land in Moreton Bay. Parkstone Property is operated on Yui Land in Mackay. We pay respect to the elders past, present and emerging and acknowledge their continuing connection and custodianship of the land where we live, work and share ideas.
I wish I knew